Hi Sunethra.
Hi Azara.
Looking forward to a lovely conversation and thank you for having us here today.
My pleasure, Azara, my pleasure.
Sunethra, I'd love to start off by asking you, what is your relationship with art and how did the passion sort of come forward?
Well, it's mostly the performing arts rather than paintings. Yes, of course, that too. When I was in England, when I was studying at Oxford, there was a very strong theatre group. They are called Oxford University Dramatic Society, OUDS. And I had a lot of friends who were very good actors and who were part of that group. And they used to practice, they used to do big productions, and I used to always go and hang out with them.
Lovely.
And gradually I developed a passion for that. That's how it came about.
That's wonderful. Was Wolfgang also a part of this?
No, Wolfgang came into my life very much later.
Yeah.
And so when I came back here, there wasn't a hell of a lot of things happening where the performing arts were concerned.
Yes.
But whenever there was, I used to go and see it. And I felt very strongly that young theatre people here, particularly the Sinhala speaking and Tamil speaking, who had no powerful, influential friends, unlike the English theatre people. So they wanted to do plays, they had no money. Government did not support them at all. So what I did was, I put a lot of my own money in and set up something called the Sunethra Bandaranaike Trust. And we started giving money to the theatre people from 1995, as far back as then. So whenever anybody does a play, they write to us to ask for funds. So we say, can we have a look at the script? So look at the script, and if you are happy, if you like, we said yes. But not all the money that they wanted, but as much as we could give, we used to give. And that still continues. All these theatre people who are now doing plays, Sinhala or English, have been funded by my foundation over the years.
That's fantastic.
Almost all of them. So they are good friends of mine. We sit off an evening and talk about theatre, what theatre means for us. What did you do the other day? Oh my God, why did you do it quite that way? Should you not have done it another way? So,
was there any particular dramatist that recently piqued your interest?
oh, there are two or three. Well, in the
Please
Sinhala
share.
medium, there's Rajitha Disanaike,
Okay.
there's Asoka Handagama, there's Prasanna Vitanage. They are the ones who
Lovely filmmakers, in fact.
have also filmmakers also. And English theatre, there is Ruantida Chikera. There was J. Koloff and Ruhani Pereira. Recently, they haven't been doing any theatre, again due to lack of funds, I think. And people like that, yeah.
With your interest in performance art, I've also noticed it playing a very critical role in the form through which you nurture the challenged individuals through your school. So, was there any particular reason as to why you picked performance art to be that medium?
Yes. It is because of my friend Wolfgang Stange. He had been for well over 40 years in England working with differently abled young people using the performing arts to develop them. And he has really done a wonderful job. And he said, would you like to do something like that? I was rather reluctant at the beginning because I knew nothing about the subject. But I said yes. That was over 20 years ago, right? The book covers 20 years, but we have been working for almost 22 years. And then we started training young people to do this work with the differently abled young people. We have classes, we call them workshops, and then we bring them together. We have about average of about 25 in a class. It runs for about 3 hours. And the trainers are there. They have been given very good training and they love what they are doing. They are totally committed and dedicated, which is very important to us. and they work with these kids. And over the years, we have seen amazing changes coming over them, really amazing, from what they were when they came to us to what they are now. Because the performing arts brings joy to everybody's lives, and they can step outside the gloomy atmosphere they have at home and become a different character, right? And then they're training, they're speaking, or even if they can't speak, they use mime, and a play is created, and that is performed on stage to a massive audience.
And what I also love about is the recent initiative of publishing the coffee table book.
Yes, Wings
and
is called.
I found it also interesting that performance art very strongly presented visually, and it was an interesting curation. So what I would like to also ask you, Sunethra, is what was the premise upon which this coffee table book encapsulated the journey that you've taken in the last few years with the school?
Yes, okay. After we had completed 20 years and having done really good work, if I may say so myself, and performed over and over again, not only in Sri Lanka, but in England, in Australia, in India, in Norway, in Italy, I thought it was time we brought it all together, the 20-year journey, in the form of a book. And I must say, the people who did the book have done a brilliant job. Smriti Daniel and her friend Renu, then the photographers, Sudha, her husband, and Malaka. They were so enthralled when they went to the workshop. They said they had tears in their eyes. So they got completely captured. And that's why it's so good. They were so inspired. It was not just another book, not at all. No. And, we just wanted to tell everybody about our story. Look, get a book and read it. That's what we have been doing, and that's what we will continue to do. Getting better and better as we go along.
It's always interesting to have a publication sort of narrate the
exactly.
works that also
quite right. It's there forever, that book.
Exactly, archived for life.
That's right.
Also, Sunethra, you're very interesting as a patron. You've promoted and partaken in the process of a lot of multidisciplinary works of art, from that of architecture to visual to even the performance like we discussed. And you were also the chairperson of the Geoffrey Bawa Trust.
Yes, indeed I was.
I would really appreciate if you could share with us your perspective of Geoffrey Bawa and the process through which you engaged with him with the building of your home, the restoration.
Yeah, well, Geoffrey Bawa first became my friend, and then we became more and more friendly. We clicked very well. We hit it off right from the beginning.
How fantastic.
Oh yes. I used to spend evenings often with him at his home, and we used to talk about everything. And he was a very good architect. And when he was building Kandalama, then came the one for Jetwing Lighthouse.
With Lucky Senanaika's.
Yes, that's right. And then Blue Waters. I used to go trailing behind him and walk with him when he was giving instructions to the constructors and to the young architects, and tick them off saying, no, that's not what it should be like that. And I saw what amazing things he was doing, what amazing changes he was. A little change to something made a world of difference. And he always said, when you're inside a space, inside a building, you should be looking out from the inside rather than in from the outside. And you find all his buildings, particularly Kandalama. You go to any space, you are sitting in the Louvre and you see Sigiriya. So this was the most amazing thing that any architect did. And he could go to some land where somebody wanted to build a house or hotel. He will look at it, smoking his cigarettes, and he'll nod his head. And once he makes up his mind to do it, he could visualize what he was going to create there, which very few architects can do, then or even now. He could picture, he would look at the surroundings, if there are trees or whatever. If he didn't like the land, he says, sorry, I am not going to build here. So I will tell you a story to illustrate what I was saying. Aitken Spence wanted to build a hotel near Sigiriya. So they had gone and surveyed the area and picked a land. And they had got approval from the then president, Mr. Premadasa. So the head of Aitken Spence, Mr. Michael Mack, was a very dear friend of Geoffrey's. He said, Geoffrey, I want you to build a hotel there. So, all right, let's go and have a look at the land. So they hired a helicopter, okay, and they were flying over the area where they had identified the land, and they said, that's the land. He looked and said, that's the land? I'm very, very sorry. I'm not going to build anything there. Oh dear, Geoffrey, but we've got approval. He said, I don't care. Get approval. He said, now just keep going round and round. In the helicopter, they went round and round. He found this land. Huge rock, then grass, and then dropping into the lake. He said, this is where I will build. So this is, but Geoffrey, is a rock. That's where I will build, if you can get approval. So they got the approval, and then he started creating this most incredible hotel, sitting on the rock, coming out of the rock. All the rooms, the balconies have plants that grow right down, so that finally the whole of the front of that building will be covered by plants, right? Creepers coming right down, that's what it is now. And that's how he created it. And wherever you are in the hotel, you're looking out, different views out. And that was incredible.
It takes a lot of integrity and a strong character to
Yes.
be a perfectionist in every aspect.
He was. He was a very, very modest man. But he must have known he's a good architect, surely.
Of course.
And he had very firm views. And he went with that. Nobody could shake him from that. If it's no, it's no. So it was wonderful working with him on my house in Horogolla. It was something that was occupied by one of my ancestors. Great, great, great grandfather. Single storied, long building. Then his son decided that it was time to put a proper building up in the true British style, a two-story building with big spaces, high ceilings, verandas right round. So that house was created with a beautiful garden in front, fountains, and that ancestor moved there and abandoned this. So it got completely into a decrepit state. And my grandfather, Sir Solomon, loved horses. He had many, many horses, racing horses, riding horses. So quite a lot of the horses were stabled there because it had the spaces. There were 6 horses stabled there, divided into partitions, and the horses were there. And that's what it was until my grandfather passed away in 1946. I was only 3 years old then. Then my father, who was in politics, didn't have any time for horses. Though he did ride when he was a young boy, he gave them all away. And then this place was just fell into disuse. They used to go and dump things there, and gradually it was beginning to fall apart. So when I was married the second time to Mr. Udayananaike, we didn't have a house of our own. So whenever we used to go and stay in the main house, looking from the balcony out there, I said, hey, how about building our houses here? He said, yes, why not? It belonged to my brother. So we negotiated with him and purchased that property, the house and the property around there. And I told Geoffrey, I think I know where I want my house built. Where? Come with me, I'll show it to you. No. Is it out of Colombo? No. I said, don't say no, just come and see. So I took him, bundled him into my vehicle and took him there. And as we were driving up with the main house there on the left, this is set further back, he said, stop the car. He got out, lit a cigarette, put his elbow on the roof of the vehicle, and he was looking. Very silently he was looking. And now I'm shivering in the back seat. Having looked, he said, yes, I'll do it. Hurrah!
Wow.
I was so happy. Then, of course, the whole process started, taking photographs of the building as it was, picking the young architects who were going to work with him, picking a superb contractor who had done a lot of very good work for Geoffrey, and step by step, it was turned into my home. He had to add a wing because there wasn't enough space in the existing building. We had to strip the walls of the plaster and replaster because the walls were about that thick and out of kabuk, and kabuk tends to suck water up, and he created it. He used to come about once in 6 weeks to see whether the work he had assigned has been done. If it's not quite right, he'll say, look, this won't do. Now we have to make some changes. So I said, Geoffrey, you're not going to break any walls. If you do, you pay for it. I'm not going to pay for it. Oh, I never break walls. All right, you don't break walls. He did in 2 places. That's all right. And he created what is now my house. And it took us 4.5 years from the first day to the day we moved in. A little religious ceremony with Buddhist priests coming and chanting. My mother wanted that. And why so long? Because my husband didn't have a lot of cash to put in at once. Also, we wanted to find things like timber, old well-seasoned timber from houses that have been were being dismantled, right? When a house is being dismantled, there are people who go and offer a price to the owner, take the whole house home, and brick by brick, tile by tile, they dismantle it and they sell. So they all knew I was looking for things. So they used to ring up and say, I think there's something you might want. So we used to go all the way down to Gaul as well and bought really good timber, good teak and things like that for floorboards and pillars. So that took time to find really good quality material. But it didn't matter. I thoroughly enjoyed them. One of the most enjoyable periods of my life was this young architect from India who was attached to his office. We used to run around everywhere. We used to go to Singapore to buy some things like bathroom tiles and things like that. And we had such fun building the house. That's how that house came to be. And Anjalendran says to me even today, Sunethra, you're the only one who has not changed anything in that house. It remains as it was, the way Geoffrey wanted it to be, which is true. I have no reason to change it because I loved everything he did. And I learned so much from him.
More than an architect, I felt he was always an artist. He always had a vision with his buildings, even with tropical modernism, shades of light and flavor, always a performance in its sense.
Drama, great drama.
Great drama, like the personality himself.
And when he's done and he stands there, I'm sure he would have been so happy.
Not surprised.
So happy. But he never, in any way, not even in the slightest way, thrust himself forward as being a good architect. He created things. It's for other people to judge, not for you to judge. He was a man like that.
Also, Sunethra, through the years, you have always been a supporter and patron of artistic expression through your own initiatives and that of
Yes,
others as well.
yes.
How has that impacted you as a person, and how has it helped you perceive life in your experience?
Well, as you know, Azara, art is expression of what human beings have experienced or are experiencing. Sorrow, joy, love, tragedy, whatever it is. When an artist takes a canvas and starts painting, it is a story he's saying there. Whatever the story is, it's a story that is staying there. Particularly after our conflict, there were these very good artists, Tamil artists, who were creating things which were heartbreaking, some of the stuff. What actually happened? They painted those things. So I think the same for performing arts. When somebody creates a play, that play tells a story or tells many stories that come together one way or another. And that is what I love about art. If I look at a painting, that painting says things to me. May not be exactly what the artist wanted to say, but it says something to me. Same with theatre. You see a play and you see all the nuances of it. And you say, my God, that play that ran for 1.5 to 2 hours says a massive story for many years, covering many years. So art is something very close to my heart because of that. Reading too, but that's another level. Art is visual.
Yes. Thank you very much, Sunethra, for your time. We really appreciate the sharing of your perspectives.
Thank you very much.